Okay, quiet in the studio. There's another fire in the hole. Well, hello there. This is AbFab. Yes, your wonderful host of that wonderful digital podcast called Cheshire Matters. And it's a digital pub, and we have conversations about different things. And this is a special. And this evening we have Statsman with us. Say hello, Stats.
Good evening. Hello.
And we have that wonderful man. And that's what he told me to say. The fire is on the way. The Raven. Say hello, sir.
Good evening, gentlemen, and good evening, listeners.
Well, there you go. Right. Well, this is a bit of a thorny subject. This evening, we're talking about whether the Church of England is under threat of irrelevance in the United Kingdom. Now, I know that's a complex and multifaceted question, but let's have a think about it. And I know that we're not going to get a definitive answer, but there are points that we could actually go through which will possibly give us an idea of what's going on. And there are 6 of them that I've picked out. The first is declining religious affiliation. The second, changing social and moral values. The third, scandals and controversies. Fourth, increasing religious pluralism. Fifth, engagement with contemporary issues. And sixth, a more positive one, because it's always good to end on something positive, the church's role in the national identity. So, let's go on with the first one, declining religious affiliation. No doubt about it, the Church of England has witnessed a decline in religious affiliation and church attendance over the past few decades. Guys, tell me what you think. Why? What's the reason?
What I would like to say on this, Jonathan, is this. First of all, if you go back, shall we say, 40 or 50 years, we had very solid structures within the country which endorsed and supported the ethos of the church, such as Sunday school, people attending churches. But also, I have to say this, which is now echoed throughout the country in all sorts of areas of public life and leadership across the country. We have declining moral standards, morals and ethics, which we've covered many times over. And this is due in part, in my view, to lack of attendance at church and lack of role of the church in maintaining traditional standards.
Stats, what's your take on it?
I think there's quite a few reasons for this. I'd say science is a big reason as well. Over the years, people are just not believing in God as much, and that hasn't helped. And reason and logic, I think people have just, I don't know, I think they're working out that maybe God might not be real.
Okay.
It's just, I'm going to be honest, I think it might have gone past the point of saving it, to be honest.
Do you think
How
so?
are you going to get church attendance back up?
Well,
I just think it's going to be impossible when I think they need to modernise somehow. It's 2,000 years old. It's just not appealing, especially to the younger people. And with all this technology and so many distractions and busy lives.
Yeah, I get it.
It's kind of fading away, isn't it?
So that brings us on to point number 2, the changing social and moral values. Now, they had traditional values and positions on issues such as same-sex marriage, gender equality, reproductive rights, and they have often put it at odds with the shifting societal norms. So as the UK becomes more progressive and inclusive, the church's conservative stances may be responsible for alienating the younger generations and contributing to its perceived irrelevance among certain segments of the politicians and the population. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting, this actually. It's very important because you have a conflict going on here. Now, does the church stand by its fundamental truths in relation to God? And we can get into a big sort of analysis here and a thesis about the church and what it all means. But you have a situation where if you actually look at the Bible and study the Bible and look at what the messages are, they're about values and morals and ethics. Now, does the church simply throw all of that out of the window to accommodate a society in decline, or does it stand by what its fundamental truths are?
Yeah.
In other words, does it stand by its traditional message, which actually has worked for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, for societies, Christian societies, or does it abandon them simply to maintain a connection and maintain popularity? I don't think it should.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
I think all morals and teachings have gone, and the Bible's not really followed by the church anymore, is it? And they've let their own religion be mocked that much. It just seems a joke to some people.
Well,
I think...
You go ahead, Mark, sorry.
Rather than it being infected, I think the church have actually dived headfirst into this multiculturalism, this woke stuff, by trying to stay relevant with the times. But that's contradicting the teachings of Christianity, though, isn't it? You see, we've got this mess now, haven't we? I just don't think the COV are handling modernity very well.
Well, the other thing is that you need to take into account, which is point number 3, which is scandals and controversies. So like any institution, the Church of England has faced scandals, controversies that have damaged its reputation and undermined its authority. So cases of child abuse within the church, mishandling of abuse allegations, and internal divisions on issues like women's ordination have eroded public trust and led to some question of whether the church is actually relevant in its moral standing today. So I think that's part of what you're actually getting across. And I feel myself personally that all these little things keep on taking another chunk out of it. And one of the biggest ones is the 4th point, which I'm hoping that you're going to come in on, please. And it's the increasing religious pluralism. The United Kingdom has become a religiously diverse society with a growing number of people identifying as non-Christian. There you go. Steve, come on in.
Absolutely vital in terms of who we are as a nation, in terms of our identity, but also the guidance for its future in terms of leadership, identifying something very fundamental in terms of what is naturally right or naturally wrong. We have leadership across the country now where all the time they're trying to work out with committees, this, that, and the other, in terms of what's right in society and how can we solve this. And the bottom line is, and we covered this a while ago, we did mention this, whereby we made a connection by the decline in morals and values and ethics in this country and the lack of connection to the church and its fundamental traditional values. In other words, its fundamental truths. And the fact of the matter is, the church has allowed itself to succumb to popularism by connecting to things which are not actually right in many ways in terms of the very foundations of the church. Now, no organization can survive in longevity if it's simply going to do anything and everything to succumb to popularism and basically, please everybody. Well, you can't please everybody. Well, some things in life, the foundations of society are either right or the wrong, and you cannot please everybody on the basis of just going along with everything. You can't.
Well, one of the things that bothered me was the Archbishop of Canterbury allowing an Islamic ceremony to take place within a Christian church. Now, I didn't think that was the right thing to do because I don't think there is any mosque in this country that would allow a Christian ceremony to take place within it.
No, that's true. And to be quite honest with you, I'm sure we all sort of take the view that each to their own, and people have their own views on whether it's politics, religion, and lots of other subjects. But the fact of the matter is, we are allowing our culture and our heritage and our religious identity as a nation to be so diluted by anything and everything else that we are no longer becoming relevant in our own country. Yeah. And we're losing the plot in this country. And I'm afraid to say the church has a massive role to play in getting back to its fundamental truths.
Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, what we're going to see is we're going to see other faiths now which are going to surpass Christianity, well, the Church of England specifically. And I'm afraid it's not going to be the dominant driving force behind our morals and culture, which it has been. And it literally influenced our constitution and pretty much Parliament. Yeah. We saw it all with the coronation. It's a massive influence. And this is all down to mass immigration.
Yeah, that's another thing as well.
And this is a massive part of the attack on our culture and our identity.
Indeed.
It's sad.
So
can I just add?
Yeah, go ahead.
Add to what Mark has said there, John, which is talking about, the influence of the church in this country. Well, is it worth people seriously considering now what happens if our indigenous heritage and our indigenous religion, Christianity, what happens if it's replaced with something else? Do people need to start to consider that?
Yeah.
Are we there?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Now, Mark, go ahead. You want a final one on that point?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at now, there's rumblings of, trying to get them out of Parliament. They've already managed in schools now. We used to have when I was younger, and we're only going back 30 odd years. 40 years, I'm older than I think. But in primary school, every assembly used to be religious in the mornings.
Indeed. You'd sing a hymn.
There was classical music and hymns played at the same time every day.
Yeah.
There was the ethos of Christianity and its values.
Yeah.
Now that went, and then they're looking at Parliament, and then you've got the decline in people attending church. I just see other cultures, other religions now going to surpass it.
How do you think?
Will they be the dominant force for our morals and culture? Because I hope not.
No. How do you think that the church is doing with their engagement with contemporary issues? I know there was a lot of I know there's a lot of challenges, but do you think they've made enough effort to engage with contemporary issues and maintain its relevance that way?
Well, yes, I do, but they're doing it in the wrong way, because what they're doing, they're simply bowing down to, modern ways.
Okay. So they're adapting messages and practices to resonate with younger generations, and you don't think it's working?
No, I don't. In fact, I think what they're doing, I think large elements of the Christian church is actually selling out simply to maintain or attempt to maintain a connection, whereas what they should do, they should stand firm. If you have principles and truths and values, you stand by those. You should never sell them out. Now,
so you're talking about
organisation. Sorry, just 1 second, John. A quick point. Every organisation in this country, and certainly something as important as our religious connection with Christianity for well over 1,000 years, established in this country, it's like the cornerstone of what we are and who we are.
Yeah.
And we're losing that. And all our other institutions have survived for so long on the basis of never, ever, ever selling out what they firmly believe and stand for.
Well, like social issues like poverty alleviation, environmental stewardship, and community development. I mean, the community development one is the big one, because that's where they're losing out, because they're not getting the affiliation from the communities. Go ahead, Mark.
As I said before, the modern values that they're choosing to make themselves relevant are totally contradicting their actual values. And it's the woke stuff that they've jumped on. Why don't they concentrate on what you just said then?
Yep.
And maybe people will be inclined to support them. But when they just look ridiculous, and then everything they're coming out with just totally contradicts what's actually in the Bible and their teachings.
Yeah.
I can only see one way this. Steve, I can only see one way this is going, mate.
Well, let's end on the final 6 point, with which basically is the role in national identity. Let's be positive about this, because the Church of England still holds a symbolic and constitutional role in the United Kingdom as the established church. The monarchy's connection to the church and the presence of bishops in the House of Lords demonstrate that enduring influence in national affairs. So, although I would say, and I would agree with you, you'd say it's largely ceremonial, but the Church of England is still there, and it's still there in public life. So, is there a platform that we can actually build on? Go ahead, Steve.
Yes, I'm just going to make a what might seem initially is a very small point, but it's quite significant, actually, in my view. First of all, you've got the constitutional connections and the connections with Parliament and our history and all that, and what it's sort of made us, who we are.
Do you want the music, Steve?
And the rights and sort of privileges and the understandings of fairness and tolerance and lots of other things, and about being a Christian in many ways. But in terms of our national heritage, this might sound a little bit of a quirky little point, but in my current job, I go all over Cheshire. And I go through a lot of small villages all over the place. And I will say this, everywhere I go, I see flying at the top of church towers the English flag. And I saw one today. I was passing through Church Minshall, and there's a fabulous old church there. It's hundreds of years ago. It's been there for a very, very long time. And same as Nantwich and lots of other places, you always see the English flag flying at the top of the tower. It's fabulous. Now, the churches in these villages all over the place not only look tremendous because they're very old buildings and they've stood the test of time, but they are a symbol of who we are as a nation and what we stand for, or what we used to stand for. Now, in my view, we very much need to get back to that. And I have to say, I think this is very important. This is a little role that we can play in this, because we could go about Cheshire and we could promote the Cheshire churches, what they're doing in communities.
Yeah, I agree.
And we can start to re-establish, certainly within the county of Cheshire, we could start to sort of re-establish what we are about as a nation, and we can promote the Christian message, our heritage, our history, and we can make a firm stand so that we actually get back to our proper foundational roots of morals, values, ethics, and traditionalism. And we can try and make sure that we can give a message to the church that they do exactly that.
I always like to put the music underneath him when he goes on. Goes on one of those little escapades where he's being totally English. Yes. Go ahead, Mark.
We're looking for some positives. I mean, I know I've been a little bit pessimistic. I'm just being realistic, really. But the positives were, I suppose, at least on the coronation, the oath wasn't actually changed. It was, he's the defender of the faith, not all of them.
Yeah.
The bit with the other faiths was just an add-on.
Yeah,
but
faith.
Again, it's like this trying to be relevant. And no, I think they should have just stuck to what they do. And he's the defender of the Protestant faith.
Yeah. And that is it. And what we should say is, in conclusion, are we going to be positive? Are we going to say, yes, there's a chance that we can go out and we can actually help and we can fight for it? Because I know I go to church every Sunday.
Yes, I think, Jonathan, I think you're right. And I think we, as a group of people on this podcast, can hopefully provide a positive message that people do likewise, and can also start to influence in a positive way the message that stood the test of time for 1,000 years in this country, not only in terms of our fundamental values and beliefs, but also our national identity. I think it's vital, and I'm glad to say I think it's great that we've done this little message and discussion on the podcast.
Well, it opens it up, doesn't it? Go ahead, Mark.
Absolutely.
I think they've really got to find a way now to modernise an old religion, but not with all this woke stuff.
Yeah.
No,
and
keep
it.
That's got to go.
Steve, this isn't part of our culture, all this insanity.
Yeah.
And I think someone needs to remind the church that and bring it back and try and find another way to be relevant. Because this really isn't it. This
isn't it. Well, the way to be relevant is to take the traditions and make them strong, back them.
Defend our culture.
Defend it. So if somebody, if any of these guys go to actually rip a Bible, I mean, I saw a picture, it was on Twitter, and it was some Muslim smashing a statue of the Virgin Mary. Now, you do anything to a Quran, and they're up in arms. And they only represent about 4% of the country. And yet this government just pays so much attention to them. And I'm sorry, I'm not anti-Muslim, I'm not anti-Islam, I'm not anti any other religion. I just don't like being insulted and telling us we have to accept it. Go ahead, Mark.
They defend their religion at all costs. That's the difference. Whereas the church are not. Like I said before, they've been mocked, and they don't stick up for themselves.
Yeah,
they don't stick up for our culture. Maybe if they embraced the fight back to save our culture, which is what we're trying to do, rather than jumping on the bandwagon of the thing that's attacking it.
Yeah.
They might stick around for a bit longer.
So to actually wrap everything up, we have to say that the church's engagement with contemporary issues right now is not too good. But it's still got a constitutional role, which ensures that it remains visible and influential in the country. So it's something that can still be built on because they are still there. But they've got to have a change of management, I think. And they've got to have a change of attitude. I mean, if you'd have turned around to the Crusaders and said, oh, look, in the 12th century, you're going to offend, certain people. What did they do? They didn't actually turn around and say, oh, dear, maybe we can actually sit down and have a chat about it or anything like that? No, that didn't happen. There needs to be a different attitude come about. Finally, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say, Mark touched on the issue of defending our faith, and I think we should do this more. We sit back too much as a nation, and we tolerate far too much in terms of attacks on everything that our country is, including our predominant religion, which is Christianity. And I think it's unacceptable. I also think the church should not be engaging in selling out to this, what I call this anything goes culture, where anything in society now is acceptable. Well, actually, in the Bible, it says it isn't.
No, it's right.
And there are rules for right and wrong in the Bible for a reason.
But they've got to get more affiliation. There's just no two ways about it. They've got to get more people into the churches. That comes back to the education system and other forms of attack from within our establishment on the religious process. Final comment from Mark, please.
I think there's a bit of guilt as well, isn't there, for the past? Again, it seems to be a pattern with these people who surrender to this woke ideology. You can't be going blaming things and going dragging up the past.
No.
You've got to now concentrate on the future, try and strengthen the religion, and,
that's right.
and try and back people like us up who are trying to fight for our identity.
Keep the traditional values, keep it in, and
be nice.
So in actual fact, we're being quite positive about it, really. And Steve's made some very, very good points there. So I'm going to call it. I'm going to pass the plate. Anybody got any digital coins they want to put in it to actually buy some wine for the church? Say
is don't ever sit next to Mr. Stats when there's a collection plate going around.
I've noticed.
He's never got any money in his pocket.
I've noticed the Church have modernised slightly because they've got card machines in there.
Oh, yes. That's if your donations can go on a card, and it tap it. Wireless. There nouveau. Anyway, okay, then, well, let's say goodbye to that one. And we will be going on. What's the next one going to be, Mark?
It's going to be the attack on our constitution, how that's been subverted.
Okay, I like that.
It's a biggie because it really does explain exactly what's happened to us.
And
Absolutely.
And Steve likes that. And okay, we're sorry the Gazelle wasn't here with us tonight, but he was otherwise detained. And I don't mean in a Greek jail.
He's been on the beach again in his mankini.
Or selling them, one or the other. Okay, let's say goodnight to that one. All right, Stevie, thank you very much for your presence here this evening. And
pleasure, absolute pleasure. I thought it was tremendous that we had this discussion. Actually, very important to do so.
Indeed. Okay. And Mark, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thoroughly enjoyed it again.
All right. Well, okay. No funnies. We're just going to fade out. Here we go. I'm fading out.
I'm just going to give a little shout out to all the churches flying the English flag across Cheshire. Fabulous.
Do you know what? We were fading out then. Mark, he has no ears. He's got a big set of headphones on that head of his, but he doesn't hear anything.
Doesn't take the hint, does he?
God bless now.